Hello, everybody, and welcome to the One Nation of Gamers Summer Circuit EU plus NA qualifier number 8. I'm Osmo, joined once again. It's been a while, Chalky.
You know, TJ, it really hasn't. I feel like we've been doing stuff literally every day. But yeah,
Every
it's
day.
good to be back. Fun to cast some Hearthstone always, and this is, like you said, the final qualifier. So this is it for these players trying to make it at the last minute to PAX.
Indeed. Yeah, today we'll be broadcasting EU number 8, followed immediately by NA number 8. So at the end of the day, we will have two more players going to the feature tournament that will happen this weekend. It actually starts tomorrow. So, should be good. And we'll also have a bunch of people get GEICO points to further their place in the standings to hopefully qualify for that feature tournament as well. And another bit of news, Chalky, you will not be casting this weekend because you will actually be playing. Is that correct?
Oh, I didn't know if I was allowed to say yet, but yeah, I'll be playing in the feature tournament. I was lucky enough to be invited, so hopefully, whoever qualifies today, I'll just crush them. No problem.
Yeah. I believe that someone told me earlier that you were allowed to announce it, so
Okay.
I hope I'm not going
Cool.
to get in any trouble for that, but
Well, it's all out there
looking forward
now.
to it. It's all out there now. It's all on the table. But
Yep.
anyways, guys, first match of the day is going to be Chimmy versus Stef. Little funny story there. We'll explain in a second. And then Privet or Privet maybe could be a soft T versus Sammy will be the matchup for E qualifier. You saw the brackets on your screen during the pre-roll. Um, and yeah, so this is the continuation of the EU Open that happened yesterday. So basically, we'll broadcast these semifinals. There you go. You can see the brackets on your screen real quickly there. So these players will be playing the same decks that they played in the qualifier yesterday. It will be single elimination, but we will play a third place match because there is some money on the line. There is some GEICO points on the line. And once again, speaking of GEICO points, if you guys want to learn more or check out geico.onog.gg, you can win an official TSM PC, get a GEICO quote, and get all the information that you'll need about all the upcoming stuff for the One Nation of Gamers Summer Circuit, which is about to come to a close.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is the last one, so it's a little too late if you're new to finding out about the summer circuit. It was 16 open tournaments, all leading up to 4 feature tournaments and a grand final at PAX. Over $60,000 in prizes, all that good stuff. Really awesome tournament put on by One Nation of Gamers, GEICO, Liquid, and TSM. So hopefully they'll have more stuff like this in the future. And like TJ said, if you want them to, best thing you can do is really go over to like geico.onog.gg, show your support.
Yeah, enter in the GEICO quote, enter in for the giveaways. Subscribe to the newsletters as well. It really helps us do what we do, so we appreciate it. And if you guys like watching Hearthstone esports, you should appreciate it too. But I think we're moments away from jumping into the first match of the day. Chimmy versus Stef, and I mentioned a funny story. Stef is actually the brother of famous Hearthstone professional player from, I believe, Nihilum.
Mm-hmm.
Tice.
Tice, yeah. So you said they look pretty similar.
I only saw his picture for a brief moment, so
Okay.
it was enough to say I was told that one of the players playing today was Tice's brother.
Right, and you saw him and you were like, that's him. That's the one.
That's him. That's the one.
All right.
So, I mean, it's not really that tough because it was like 1 out of 8
Mm-hmm.
players that are playing today, and I think I only saw like 4 players' pictures, and one of them was like, that guy could definitely not be Tice's brother.
Okay.
So I also used sort of the process of elimination to determine which one, but he does bear a slight resemblance to his brother, which is natural.
Very, very much good deductive skills you have, TJ.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Glad you could figure it out.
There he is.
There's the picture.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're starting off with a crowd favorite matchup, TJ, you could say. A Druid
Is it
mirror.
Druid versus... Oh, okay. Druid versus Druid. Now, It's a little bit interesting, the increase in popularity of Druid in open tournaments over the past few weeks. At the beginning of the summer circuit, we didn't see Druid that much. It was all Warlock, Hunters, Warriors, and uh,
Warrior.
yeah, Warrior. And we saw maybe like out of the 4 players playing in the final but open, maybe one, usually zero, playing with Druid. There was a couple of players that had an exception, like a lot of the Taiwanese players that were in Druid regardless. But
Hmm.
now it's almost every player has it.
Yeah, and in the European finals here, all 4 players have Druid. North American, I believe we have one Druid player. So, like you said, big differences among these players. And it's not really even like regional differences necessarily, because there are European players in the North American finals. There are North American players and vice versa. So, yeah, it's just kind of like strange. Some opens we just see Druid decks dominate.
Yeah. And when one player hits a wild growth and the other doesn't, sometimes it can be a little bit rough. But here it's sort of canceled out by the fact that Chimmy did have innervate
Hmm.
for to get out the shade to sort of start ramping up himself.
Yeah, Innervate definitely puts you ahead a little early, especially with something like Shade of Naxxramas, but Wild Growth is also really important because it essentially puts you ahead one step at every turn. So after 2 turns, it basically outdoes an Innervate. Now, Chimmy did pick up a Wild Growth, so he could go for something like Wild Growth, maybe coin out a Wrath this turn, clear out the Shredder, and get his Wild Growth going. Of course, he'll be very slightly off curve if he does that, but it would maybe help to disrupt some of Steph's plays, leaving out like a 4-2 shade, maybe a 4-1 shade. That'd be obviously not as good, but it might stop Steph from just slamming down Drew the Claw on curve.
Yeah. And he really does look like Tice. We can confirm they are brothers.
So he's just going to coin out Shredder instead. Uh, guess I'll go for the Wild Growth Wrath next turn. I mean, that's basically all he has for the next turn, so kind of
Yeah.
just wants to get the more proactive play down by just kind of slamming down minions, and then wants to play those spells as late as possible. Obviously, Wild Growth you want to play as early as possible, but when it disrupts your curve, it can be a little awkward.
He do needs to find some type of board threat here besides Harrison Jones in the next couple of cards, because using Wrath and Wild Growth next turn is just going to leave him with 3. So he needs to pick up something like an Ancient of Lore. Because if he falls behind in mana, which he's already done, he will have the Wild Growth to catch up. But we can see that Steph already has both Ancient of Lore, so he's going to have a big card advantage. He's got to either get really far ahead on board or draw into more board threats, or else he's going to fall behind in this game.
Yep. So, Chimmy, kind of like I said, kind of has to go for Wild Growth Wrath this turn. I suppose Savage Roar would be, not the worst, but it really doesn't do too much, and it also gives up a combo piece. Doesn't get that Wild Growth down, which he really needs to do. So anything other than Wild Growth Wrath here, I think, is probably a mistake.
He might really want to try and clear here, but it's just way too.
Yeah, you can't clear everything, unfortunately.
Yeah, he doesn't have enough mana to Savage or Hero Power, which would allow him to clear off the Druid, the Claw, plus the Shredder, so this makes a lot of sense. He is fortunate enough to get a 3-attack creature out of the Paladin Shredder, so.
Hmm.
Yeah, out of the Paladin Shredder, which contests Steph's Paladin Shredder, so.
Be surprised to see him go face. Yeah, generally with Shade of Naxxramas and the near matchup, you don't want to aggressively go face with it too much because you open yourself up to Keeper of the Grove. Steph could choose to like Wrath for 1, trade in, and then Keeper your 3/2. He can swipe you. Like, there's just so much stuff you open yourself up to with that kind of play. So it makes no surprise for Chimmy to hold on to it. It's going to let him break through something like that Sludge Belcher that Steph picked up. Now, Steph has an interesting decision here. He can throw out Sludge Belcher knowing full well it's just going to die pretty easily. Or he can go for a Wrath for 3 or for 1, really. But if he goes for Wrath, he needs to pick up something more. So it looks
Yeah,
like he'll just go with the Belcher.
yeah, it makes sense. Because Rat
Mm-hmm.
just if
Wrath
you
is a
Rat,
gamble. Yeah,
yeah,
you really don't have any guaranteed good play. Unless you want to play big game hunter, which is obviously not something you're thrilled about. You'd rather just develop Belcher.
yep. Most players have both Ancient of Wars in their top 10 cards. That's gonna be ramping up on the card count here pretty quickly.
Yep. Ancient Lore, one of those cards that when one player has one and the other doesn't, it can create some interesting scenarios. But I feel like when both players have both, it creates this really tense type of scenario where you have all the cards, so you probably have combo, but they have a bunch of cards, so you think they have combo, and it's you want to push, but you also have to be very defensive to play around their combo, which in turn means you can't push as hard to force your combo onto them. And
Yeah,
it's this weird scenario where the druids are just trading board turn after turn, trying to play around combo desperately.
yeah. Oh wow, Steph actually picks up the Innervate, which is gonna allow him to Wrath down the Shade, which is a
Yep.
huge deal because it's the difference between him having to trade in his 3/2 and pretty much go eat have an even board after the fact. But this allows him to not only draw cards, but give him a favorable board position.
Yeah, and he could have traded into that Harrison Jones, but you can really see he's just thinking, okay, Chimmy kind of has to deal with what I've presented. I can get 4 more damage, threaten more of the combo in the coming turns. And anytime you have the option of kind of going face or trading, and you're at such a safe health as like 29, the more you go face, the more threatened the other player feels. And so now I feel like Chimmy is going to feel like he's the one that has to trade all this. And if he just Ancient Allures, he's going to be looking at taking 8 next turn at minimum. Even more if like there's a hero power or a swipe or something from Steph, and he'll just always be on the back foot because at worst, Steph can always choose to just trade into this board with what he has.
Yep. Usually the aggressor is the player that has the advantage in the Druid matchup because it's so much of a game of board control, and Druids just don't have ways to build a strong board while also removing an opponent's board, maybe until later on in the game. So
Yep. So we'll probably just see second Ancient Allure. I would expect Steph to at least trade into that 5/3, respecting the
yeah,
fact that it could kill off uh, an Ancient Allure here. He didn't pick up combo, but he can obviously. I mean, you still just want to go face. He did pick up Keeper of the Grove, which would be really important to deal with something like that Ancient War or even
yep,
Solanas from Chimmy. Because now is about the time where Chimmy, even though there is no combo for Steph, Steph has drawn something like 4 or 5 extra cards this game from those Ancient Lures and like a Wrath. So now Chimmy's thinking, okay, he's very likely to have combo. I'm dead to it unless I taunt up. I need a taunt up.
yeah. And you can definitely see the advantage of being the aggressor and having the mana advantage here because Steph's able to play his Ancient of Lures first. And so Chimmy is forced into a defensive position in a situation where he'd want to draw cards. He doesn't get to because he has to play the Ancient of War for fear of just being killed. And he does find
Yeah.
combos. He can't quite double combo yet. I think double combo would have done it, but he's 1 mana off from being able to do that. So this turn he will probably just want to try and find the best possible board state and go into next turn with Force of Nature, Double Savage or ready.
Yeah. I think he's just kind of calculating it out. He can't do the double combo yet, so
He could
like you
just
said, I
Keeper
think
and
it's going to
Azure
be
Drake.
Keeper Azure Drake and just kind of chill back, push another 5. Your opponent's almost guaranteed to be dead next turn, and you're under no threat.
Yeah,
Do see they are really similar Druid decks, though, from both players. Ancient War seems to be one of those preferred cards now, with more like aggro paladins entering the meta more and more. Hunter decks are obviously still around. It's a very nice card against Patron in the late game if they've already executed some stuff. And just kind of the preferred top end instead of... It's actually going to trade, which I'm surprised.
sort of a dead giveaway that he has combo because he changed his game plan. He was the aggressor all game. He went face all game. There's no way that Chimmy would be able to kill him next turn. So
Yeah,
trading on board means he's getting complacent with his hand.
Yeah, I really. I'm not sure. I mean, he'll still have lethal almost no matter what. Yeah, even through 2 Druid of the Claws, double combo is lethal, so even if Chimmy had the mana to do that, even if you remove the entire board, it's still lethal. Like, I suppose, kind of looking at it, it's a trade that there's not really a great reason for it, but there's not a great reason against it either.
Yeah.
The game's pretty much locked up when you have a double combo. I think it'd be a lot more interesting if they only had like single combo, because then I think there'd be a lot of merit to going face in that last turn.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because then all of a sudden taunts block a lot of the damage.
Yep. And Chimmy is at the point where he can't even respect a single combo, so he's just going to draw, go face, and it almost feels like a lost game no matter how you spin it from Chimmy's angle. Like,
yeah.
I'm not sure how that play can really be. I guess he's planning to double taunt up next turn if he lived, but I mean, just almost too weak of a play.
Yeah. So Stef is going to take game number 1 in the series in the Druid Mirror. And I mean, pretty just standard Druid matchup. It's usually the player that gets the mana advantage first becomes the aggressor, and then if the player with the mana advantage draws decently into the mid game, then usually they'll just run away with it, and that's just the nature of the matchup.
Yep, Stef went first in that matchup, and he got the Wild Growth off first, like you said. So, despite the Innervate Shade from Chimmy, all that really contested was a Sledge Belcher that game. It killed off the front half, and then because Stef ended up going Ancient Allure into Innervate Wrath, and that just was able to kill off the Shade. Basically, I mean, when you kind of look at it like that, it's Chimmy innervated out the Shade, but then Stef used Innervate to kill it off later, so really ended up being an equal trade.
Yeah, so Stef still has Hunter and Warrior left remaining, and Chimmy still got all his 3 decks. These have been really popular lineups that we see from both these players over the past couple weeks. Chimmy running the Hunterless lineup with Warrior, Warlock, Druid, which if you're not running a Hunter, that's pretty much the lineup you go with, and then Stef running the what I think is the strongest 3 right now: the Druid, the Warrior, and the Hunter.
Yeah, I think I prefer Stef's lineup a bit. I like Hunter over Warlock in direct relation to each other as well as just across the field. It looks like it could even be a Control Warrior deck from Stef, which surprises me a little. But that, I suppose if you look at it, he actually has kind of a more hard countering lineup going. He has Control Warrior, he has a Hunter deck, and he has a Druid deck. All 3 of those line up really well into Handlock, whereas Patron Warrior really doesn't. So if he expects a lot of Handlock, I really like that strategy. It's something I myself went with at like DreamHack Summer. I took Control Warrior over Patron. I think it's not necessarily a wrong strategy. I think it's just different, and it's something a lot of people don't really play around.
Yeah. But we see Chimmy does have the Zoo Warlock.
Zoo, yeah.
So this is a little bit tougher, but Stef does have really good tools early on to deal with it. He's got both Fire Warlocks and Deathbite, plus some health gain with Armor Smith and Shield Block, and Sludge Belcher. I mean, you can't ask for too much more in the Zoo matchup than what Stef has in his opening hand.
Yep. So, looks to be pretty okay. He did hold on to that Abusive Sergeant, kind of realizing it might just get Cruel Taskmastered off. Might prompt a Coin Armor Smith, which is something Warriors don't generally get a lot of value off. I think Stef actually kept that in the mulligan along with the Fire Warlocks and Deathbite. Makes a lot of sense when you know you have the weapons to back it up, but generally Armor Smith, it's a card you kind of look at it and you're like, okay, this is one of my early anti-aggression tools. I should keep this against Zoo, but it doesn't help that much. It really doesn't do too much. It's just 1 damage, and a lot of the Zoo threats have more than 1 health. The Zoo deck has kind of adapted itself. It's come a long way from basically getting blown out by turn 4 swipe, turn 4 consecration, to now it plays so much slower and more methodical, and it can take games to the mid-late game.
Yep. And Chimmy thought a long time about whether or not to play the Knife Juggler.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess he does have like Imp Gang Boss, which can synergize with Knife Juggler, but
Yeah, and Chimmy's got a really teched out list of Warlock here. We already see an Iron Beak Owl and a Big Game Hunter. Owl is a pretty standard card, but I've actually seen quite a few Zoo players cutting it recently.
mhm.
Kind of under the logic that it's the only time it's helping you out is in a matchup you're already not happy about seeing. So it's good against Hunter, which you're bad against. It's good against Freeze Mage, which you're bad against. And it's okay against Patron Warrior, which you're bad against. So generally you can go for it, but it's just one tech slot, and you're hoping to draw it in those bad matchups, or you can improve your matchups where you're good, which I feel like ideally you want to go with that strategy. I feel like if you want to beat the decks you're trying to beat with something like that, you want to just bring a different deck at that point.
Yeah.
If you're trying to beat stuff that isn't what Zoo beats.
Yeah. I'm curious how much work the BGH did for him throughout the Open, because it's a little bit of a weird card in Demon Zoo. Right now, there a lot of the. I guess he was maybe expecting a lot of handlock, also because sometimes Demon Zoo can have some trouble with handlock.
Well, it's a very strange card because it's only too relevant in the handlock matchup if you have it in your hand and you push them below 10, you feel a lot better because you can just big game Hunter a Molten Giant. But if you're just looking to push lethal, which Zoo usually is, Iron Beak Owl serves the same purpose. It breaks through the taunt, you can push through for lethal, and it's cheaper and more versatile. So Big Game Hunter is almost even more of a niche card, and it doesn't find many targets. Like, you look at Control Area is probably one of the decks it's best against. You have some decent targets in there, but it's going to take him so long to find value out of this Big Game Hunter. And in a deck like Zoo, where he might pick up like a Doomguard in the upcoming turns, suddenly you feel bad about playing that because you don't want to discard these tech cards.
Yeah. Ow, I mean, it Silence and Acolyte Pain here, which is maybe not that big of a deal because he's still got a lot of cards, but Steph has a little bit of a awkward hand here because it seems like one of the plays here is either a coin Sludge Belcher, in which case he's holding on to double Deathbite, which is going to take a long time for him to get out and get value out of. But this just fits his mana better.
Yep, especially because he doesn't really have an axe target. I mean, he can axe off the Owl just to get rid of the charge efficiently, but the Acolyte would have ran into it anyway, and leaving behind a 1/1 is perfectly fine against Zoo. They don't usually play cards like Mortal Coil. I've seen Bane of Doom in some lists, but I wouldn't really be expecting that from Chimmy.
Yeah, especially with all the tech cards that he has thrown in.
Yeah. I don't know if Steph is really going to be expecting too many of the tech cards we see. I doubt you really are playing around Big Game Hunter against Zoo unless you're fully aware that they're running it. And that is one thing that in open tournaments you usually aren't aware of.
Mm-hmm.
Chimmy has a decent way through this Sludge Belcher with Abusive Sergeant Powerwhelming on the egg, kill off the second half with the Imp Gang boss, and you can even fit in a life tap. So, not doing too poorly for himself. He'll develop quite a nice board there. Would be weak to a Deathbite, but the fact that Steph hasn't been able to develop either of those Deathbites, kind of like you said, is pretty bad for him.
Yeah. Well, he does have Power Overwhelming. He could Power Overwhelming his egg, throw it in the Sludge Belcher, and use Implosion to clear it off. It feels like you're wasting a little bit of it, but I mean, you're still spawning the imps, so at the end of the day, it's not that big of a deal. Steph didn't equip the Deathbite last turn, so he's not going to have a Whirlwind effect ready for him immediately.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I'm not even going to pop that egg yet.
I guess he's just afraid of Brawl. He's coming up on turn 5.
Yeah, but you can kill off the egg, is my main issue with that. You're leaving up so much damage on Steph's board, he can run in the 1/1 and the 1/2 into your egg, and then Brawl. He could even axe off the egg and then kill off your Imp Gang boss. I guess that wouldn't really do too much. It would just spawn another Imp, make your expected value from Brawl slightly lower. But
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel like this plays around Brawl enough to justify it, and I feel like the more time you really make weaker plays against Control Warrior, the more time you give them to get to their late game, to get all that armor gain, and you almost lock yourself out of the game. I feel like he does think that going into a late game scenario, he'll have a lot better of a chance with tech cards like Big Game Hunter. Of course, we don't know if he has any other cards in his deck that might help towards that game plan, but
Or maybe we'll
really
second
like
egg.
to see him. Really like to see him PO at this turn, though. Like I feel like he kind of needs to pop that egg, get a 4/4 out, start pressuring more.
Well, with
And even
second egg,
then,
he's got a little more insurance
yeah,
against Brawl.
or he could play Knife Juggler. It is definitely a situation where you're so behind if there is a brawl that maybe you can't afford to play around it that much.
Yeah.
We'll have to see, though. He is going to go with that power warming, so I definitely like this. Knife Juggler would give him a knife at the end of the turn as well.
Yeah. He could
It'd only be
off the last
relevant.
line.
Yeah, it'd only be relevant if he traded in both of his 1/1s, but definitely thinking about it.
Yeah, he's roped every turn, even turn one. So
Yep, so he is going to go with that knife. He's going to maximize the chance it kills off a slime, and it went face. So, a little bit unfortunate for him. There actually is just a copy of the card Whirlwind. You're saying how there were no Whirlwind effects.
yeah.
But I think he doesn't really need it quite yet. He's just going to set up Despite and kind of start clearing off.
I feel like Whirlwind's pretty decent right now. It really helps against Aggro Paladin, which is still, I mean, I don't think it's as popular as like a week ago, but it's still really popular on ladder right now. And Whirlwind is one of those cards that can pretty much just stop the momentum and win you the game because it's a cheap card that you can empty your hand with, and it also deals with almost everything that they use.
Yeah, and it's a card that they're really not expecting against Control Warrior anyway. Against Patron Warrior, it's definitely a card you play around, but as soon as you get a tell that they're Control Warrior, you kind of get this big heads up. It's like, play as many X1s as you want. Go face. You know, don't care about anything.
Yeah. Well, he tapped there, but didn't really find anything. I mean, he had a decent Defender of Argus with the Imp in the egg, but decides that he really doesn't like his hand. He doesn't want to be stuck with just a BGH, so he decides to tap, and now he sort of gives up board initiative. And I mean, that's never what you want to do against a warrior, especially a control warrior. He's going to be able to gain life at his leisure.
Yeah, going into the late game here, the Warrior definitely in a pretty solid spot. I mean, it's kind of going to come back to how many late game cards does Chimmy have? I mean, things like Dr. Boom, Mal'Ganis, Sea Giant will be decent. Sylvanas is fine. Stuff like that is really what he's going to need to kind of piece together any sort of chance of winning in this late game. It's a really good thing for him that Stef doesn't have a Shield Slam quite yet, or else he could actually steal his Sylvanas with his own.
Yeah. And this makes it. I mean, he can shield block into it, but that's a long shot. And
then
if
he
you
can't,
shield block,
he can't play his own Sylvanas then.
Yeah.
So it's going to be an interesting turn for him. I mean, Sylvanas obviously makes it a less desirable scenario. He can just trade in the Armor Smith and then the Shield Maiden, and Sylvanas won't get any steals off, and then he might want to like develop his own Sylvanas and just armor up. Something like that could work out pretty well for him. Looks like he's going with a different play. He's going to Whirlwind. So he wants to clear off that egg. And I guess he's just going to let him steal an Armor Smith.
Yeah.
This does gain him a decent chunk of armor back. He basically ends the turn at what he started at, and yeah, now he's just going to play that Sylvanas. Yeah, I kind of like this a little less. It uses your Whirlwind, and it leaves you a Sylvanas versus a 1/1 Armor Smith, whereas the other way, you would save your Whirlwind, you'd have the same amount of armor, and it'd be a Sylvanas versus an egg. Which, the zoo definitely has more things to do with an egg, so I suppose he was just respecting that. But at the same time, you do have Sylvanas out to threaten to steal something.
Yeah. And dealing with the opponent Sylvanas on your turn is a lot less risky because there's still some weird things that Chimmy could do to guarantee a good steal. Chimmy does have card advantage here, and he does have some high-quality cards with the Sea Giant, which could be an MVP. He's got BGH to deal with a big threat from Stef, so he's not in the worst off position. He just hasn't applied that much pressure yet in this matchup. He still has to find a way to deal with this Sylvanas as well, which could pose a problem. So,
yeah, I think we'll just see a Ysera here from Stef. I mean,
yeah,
24 health. 24 health is about as healthy as you get against a zoo come turn 9. Like, you're feeling pretty comfortable.
Usually at this stage, you're having to worry about Doomguard or Power Overwhelming just killing you out. Doomguard. So being able to just play Ysera safely is such a big deal. And I mean, this works out nicely for Chimmy in the regard that he can trade into Sylvanas and not have it steal anything. But at the same time, like, what do you do? Because doing that, you make your Sea Giant more expensive, and then you still give him a turn of Ysera again.
Yeah, slight missequence there. He could have done 1 damage to the Ysera instead. Probably won't end up being too relevant. I don't think Chimmy ever really plans to get through that 4-12 this game.
Yeah. Well, he gets it out, but, I mean, we're starting to get to that point where Stef almost has lethal with Ysera Awakens plus Grom. He's got 19 damage, so he's just 5 off here.
He can set up for it with a Death Spite, and like a Nightmare would be a nightmare for Chimmy.
Yeah.
So, looks like Dr. Boom is what he's going to go with instead. I wonder if there's even a reason here, really, for Chimmy to show off this big game hunter. And there's a Nightmare, so this is going to be tough. Chimmy obviously could start to fight back. I mean, I feel like you're not that out of it yet that you start considering things like, oh, I should hide my big game hunter. But it is one of those tech cards Stef isn't really expecting at all. Yeah. But then again, his last deck is just Hunter, so there's really no reason to hold back.
I mean, how often do you expect the 20 damage from hand? I guess you sort of have to, though.
So I said he wasn't going to break through that 412, but he's actually going to. He does get the Void Tear down, though, to kind of save it. So that's nice. And there actually isn't an answer from Stef to the 15-11. But, of course, with the Grom Ysera Awakens Nightmare, that's 20 from Handy S2 on board. That is going to be enough. And so that should do it. As long as he spots that. He's mousing over the cards like, that's a lot of damage.
That does 5, that does 5, that does 10, that's 20.
It's actually interesting. Like Stef said in kind of his little bio here that he hasn't played for too long. He kind of just picked up the game. He is Tice's brother. He said he started in the beta, but he hasn't been very active. And just recently, he started practicing a bit. He watched some streams, and he said he got a hang of the game. So, you know, he, like, doesn't consider himself the greatest. He's just like, you know, I know enough. And he said, surprisingly, he got top 4. So he wasn't expecting this. It just happened. Yeah.
I guess being good at Hearthstone runs in the family, because right now he's
up
2-0 up, against Chimmy. And now Chimmy's on the ropes. This is going to be tough, because he has to win 3 games in a row against Hunter. Yeah. Which is a tough feat no matter how you slice it. Even if Chimmy's decks were tech against Hunter, which they aren't, because he's got Demon Zoo, which...
He's got Big Game Hunter in his zoo, too. Like, that's not doing much.
No, not at all. So, I mean, Stef looks like he's just smooth sailing to a final showing here.
Yeah, we'll have to see what Chimmy can really start to do to climb back against this. Wouldn't be surprised to see him throw out the Warrior deck. That's probably what he has left that's best against Hunter. Maybe he'll save that Zoo for last, but I feel like that's really going to be the tough hurdle to overcome for him.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll have to see what type of hunter deck this is from Steph. The majority of hunter lists that we've seen in the qualifiers over the past couple weeks have been mid-range, but we've seen some face thrown in there. We saw one from Pesty Cakes the other day. It had some hybrid elements to it, but it was mostly aggressive. But judging by the opening hand here from Steph, it looks like it is going to be mid-range. Web spinner, not a
Yeah.
card usually find in any type of aggressive hunter.
Yep. Definitely looks to be that mid-range hunter that we're very used to in open tournaments. Tends to be pretty good across the board. I think hybrid hunter definitely has a place, but that old kind of all-face hunter that everyone loves to hate, really haven't seen that in a very long time. I think the closest thing we saw to that was Impact the other day
Mhm.
with double explosive traps, but he did have some of the more mid-range hybrid cards in his deck as well.
Yeah. It seems like Face Hunter always gets rotated back in at some point, though. When people get
Yeah.
complacent against Hunters, it's usually when it happens. When people realize that I don't really need a tech against Hunter because they're all mid range and there's not too much I can do against that. The anti aggro tech starts to get phased out, and then all of a sudden, Face Hunter comes back and
Hmm.
takes the meta by storm once again. It's always there to keep people in check.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that analysis. I mean, it's a deck that the less you expect it, the better it is. There is a lot of counterplay to it. Kind of, you wouldn't think so reading what some people have to say about it. It is frustrating when you lose against it because it almost feels like some games there's nothing you can do, but really what you can do against Aggro Hunter is build your deck better against it in the deck building process. And when it's a deck that you're not aware that you need to be building against, you can really get taken by surprise.
Yeah, definitely true. And Steph not really finding much of a hand here.
Hmm.
Both traps in his first 6 cards here is not really what he wants. He does have Piloted Shredder on turn 4, which is a really great drop, but then he really just doesn't have anything. Freezy Trap can be good sometimes against Druid, but I mean, if he's able to like throw a keeper into it, then it could be really rough. They also have ways to deal with it with like Force of Nature, where they throw a Treant in, and then they get the Treant back to maybe throw into a second Freezing Trap later.
Yeah, can be really rough. Force Nature definitely one of the cards that lines up best against it. Feel like Chimmy might be able to get a nice Harrison Jones off here. Yeah, Steph's going to hold the second charge knowing he has those traps. And could be a coin Harrison Jones. Of course, that would get traded into very easily by the piloted shredder. So he doesn't feel too great about it.
He might try and get a little bit greedy here and
Just kind of hold.
just kind of hold and like coin out a Druid of the Claw, and then maybe see if he can get a couple different ones here. But getting it from the source is good.
Yeah.
And even though it's going to get traded in, he knows that he still has a really good hand to contest back on the board. I mean, he's got combo already. He's got Thorsan. He's got, I mean, he's just got answers to just about everything.
Yeah, I think what Chimmy was really afraid of there is if you play Druid of the Claw and taunt, one of the most common responses from Steph is to throw in his shredder, throw in his face. There goes the bow. You never get value from Harrison again. Whereas with this play, you kill off the bow, and you basically force the trade anyway. So it's the same deal, but you get the Harrison value, you get an extra card, and you save that taunt for later when it might be more relevant.
Yeah.
So he's going to go with the Juggler just to get that extra juggle off of the Death Rattle from the Shredder. That's a pretty good one.
Yeah. Not too bad. Now he has to. Man, his hand is just so poor quality. I mean, if he plays
Yeah.
Direwolf Alpha here, he has a Hunter's Mark and 2 traps.
Yeah,
There's no way to fight back on board or put on any type of pressure.
he is playing a deck that you can top deck some really big stuff like Savannah Highmane though, so there's definitely a chance that off the top of his deck he picks up good stuff, but like you said, his hand is so low quality, low mana cost that he really thinks he has to find value from his hero power this game to manage to piece together enough damage.
He hasn't applied too much pressure so far. Jimmy's at 22, which is relatively healthy. He has to decide here whether or not he wants to play Druid of the Claw or just keep her down the Knife Juggler. And to be honest, yeah, I'm always afraid to leave up a Knife Juggler. But I guess it's okay. He's just gonna.
Yeah. It's gotta kind of have to choose what to do here. I mean, either way, I think it works out decently for him.
Yeah, I mean, even if he just goes into the knife juggler here, it's basically the same situation that he'd be if he played keeper. He just uses his mana better. So
Yeah.
maybe he's thinking that he doesn't want to leave the knife juggler up regardless, but this sort of still answers the board in the same way that keeper would have,
Yeah.
but means that he has the keeper for cheaper mana later on, so he can fit it in easier. Also, I mean, maybe he's worried about the Amani Berserker smashing into the keeper and going up to 5 attack, and him not having a reasonable way to deal with it. So that could be going through his mind. It's a little bit of a long shot there because he does have swipe, but might be behind his reasoning.
Yep. Definitely going to be a rough spot for him. He didn't pick up anything like Savannah Highmane. He drew Ironbeak Owl. I mean, I feel like if he drew Highmane, he'd be in a reasonable spot. Of course, that would be answered by Sylvanas from Chimmy. And then we get into that freezing trap game in which Chimmy has both Force of Natures to counter. So I feel like no matter how you kind of look at it here, Stef's going to be walking into a turn 6 Emperor from Chimmy, and it's going to reduce a lot of combo pieces, a swipe, a keeper, just a lot of stuff to fight for the board, and Steph's going to have a tough time coming back from that. Ooh.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, looks like unfortunately we might have had a disconnect. Jimmy going to get up, so maybe... No, I don't think it's on Chimmy's end. Still have webcam feeds, so...
Yeah. Steph's did disconnect for a few moments.
Yeah.
His cam as well. It looks like he's mousing over his cards now. I believe that's him. So, if anything, he is back. But it looks like Chimmy's just going to take his time here to try and give Steph a little bit of time to come back and make sure that he is. And there we go. All right. Well, it looks like we're back. A little bit unfortunate there, but
Yeah.
things happen.
Yeah, it is going to create a bit worse of a situation.
Look at that
for
rope.
Steph.
Woo!
That rope's going. That rope's gone. All right. Interesting issues we're having. We'll have to see about the resolution of this. We've got an admin talking to the players, so we will keep you guys updated on what's happening in this game.
Looks like he just concedes. I don't think there's possibility of a. Yeah, it looks like he DC'd for one turn.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it would have mattered too much. I don't know if we would ever offer a remake for a DC since it's on the player's end.
Yep.
So I think it's just going to count as a loss.
It's an unfortunate thing. Believe it will be counting as a loss. Steph's still leading the series 2-1. Maybe going to try and get his internet issues worked out if he's having any. We should have game 4 pretty soon. He's just restarting his client, maybe checking his internet, stuff like that.
Mm. Yep. So he still is in a decent spot in the series. He's definitely not out of it. Even if he had not DC'd that turn, the game was looking very grim. I'm not sure if there was he would have been able to answer the turn 6 Emperor with Chimmy having combo in hand, plus just many tools to fight back on board. So a little bit just one of those games,
Definitely the case. Hunter didn't really do too much there for him. He did have a very awkward draw, like you said, so still can pick up a win against that Warrior deck from Chimmy or the Warlock deck, which I feel like, again, is going to be maybe the hardest mountain for Chimmy to climb.
Yeah, Warrior is pretty decent. Still don't know what type of Warrior Chimmy's running. We have not seen that deck yet. We've seen his Druid, we've seen his Demon 2, but not sure if it's Patron or Control. The large majority of players do opt to go with Patron Warrior. But we saw Steph have pretty good success with Warrior earlier. It does say that he won a game with Warlock, but That is supposed to be warrior.
Yep.
2 wins though is correct.
Yep. So again, we're just kind of waiting for the players to get back into the game.
We can go through their fun facts.
Yeah, let's do it, TJ. Let's check out.
Chimmy has green hair, if you haven't noticed. It's a little bit hard to tell because of the lighting, but when he got up, you could really see it and took off his headset. He's got green hair. Says his girlfriend's hair is also green, but it was not planned for them to both have green hair. That's an interesting coincidence.
He doesn't play deadly poison in his rogue list.
In his rogue.
Says other people don't like that.
Drinks a lot of milk. Could explain the green hair. Not sure what copious amounts of calcium will do to a body. I know it affects the hair. Not sure if it turns it green. But it's a possibility. Looks like we are going to jump into match here, so.
All right.
Enough about Chimmy. Let's talk about
Chimmy.
Chimmy again, but his Hearthstone play, not his.
Yeah, these fun facts, man. People are bringing some weak stuff to the table.
Yeah. I think Stef has the funnest fact of all. He's Tice's brother. That's like his only fact.
The other ones are just like, yeah, I've played Hearthstone, and I made top 4 of this tournament.
Yep.
Which we clearly do now. No.
All right. Well, it looks like we're jumping in here. Chimmy's going to throw out the Warlock once again. Stef, of course, is going to be on the Hunter. The only deck he still has to win with. It is still match point for Stef. He wins this game, he will move on to the finals, and he'll only have to win one more to guarantee himself a spot in the feature tournament, which begins tomorrow, to fight against Chalky_Hearthstone.
Casted by the lovely TJ Azumo QT Sanders, and co-casted by none other than the mayor of Valuetown.
Trump.
Yep. You ever co-casted with Trump, TJ?
Only once at the
How was
Legendary Series Land Finals, and it was for very brief. It was only for one best of 5. He's a swell man.
He does love his value.
He does. He does. He's a very professional guy when he's a broadcaster. I really respect it.
Well, it is going to be a pretty mediocre zoo start for Chimmy here, and I would say Stef's start, it's probably good enough. Chimmy is going to throw out Abusive Sergeant. See if he goes face. It is 5 damage, so quite a bit to lose out on if you do trade. But if you trade, he sets himself up to proc whatever trap comes out with the Abusive Sergeant. Could be explosive, could be freezing. It's probably freezing because we do see at least one explosive trap in Stef's hand.
Yeah. I don't think you can really afford to miss 5 damage to the face there.
Yeah, and now Stef gets a really nice opportunity. He can play the explosive trap and go face right back. That's going to contest the entire board for Chimmy. And when you put the explosive trap up before the freezing trap, which it looks like he's not going to go for that, but if you were to do that, the explosive trap procs first, and if it kills off the unit that attacked, freezing does not trigger if you place him in that order. But it looks like he...
Next.
Yeah, it looks like he just wants to maybe freeze the Flame Imp. That's obviously a pretty decent one to get frozen because the Warlock very rarely wants to replay it. And it also kind of kills off their Void Caller combos later, as it can just get dropped in place of like a Mal'Ganis or a bigger demon like Doomguard.
Yeah.
It is a freezing trap, so he will get that Flame Imp back, and probably just go for the Imp Gang boss this turn, I would think.
Yeah. I'd be really surprised if he played the Flame Imp again.
Nah.
But, yeah.
No way. So...
Flame Imp is one of the worst targets to get freezing trapped because I mean, if you play it twice, you do 6 damage to your
You
base.
just never want to replay it, yeah.
Yeah. 20% of your health.
Wow.
Just from one Flame Imp.
Thanks for the math lesson there, TJ.
No problem. No problemo. Rolls Leok from Animal Companion. Probably not the best in this situation.
Yep.
Because he's just going to get imps
Could get
galore.
implosioned, yeah. I feel like implosion's pretty good here. You're guaranteed to clear the Leok. Could then just, if you don't get the 4, you trade into it. And the most important thing being it's 1 turn before Knife Juggler Unleash. So you really want to get your implosion off at that last possible second before the Knife Juggler Unleash comes in and just wrecks you.
Yeah. Then it will give him an opportunity to trade in his imps to whatever Stef decides to play the next turn.
Of course, he can still get a little wrecked here by Explosive Trap, but in that case, at least Stef won't be getting any like bow charges, or in the case of Unleash the Hounds, he won't be getting any hounds. He'll just be killing the board.
Yeah. So it looks like Stef is going to go ahead and play the Explosive Trap. He realized that if he plays Powder Treader, he's going to get pretty much traded in on the board and
Yeah.
going to push some damage.
Yeah, the unfortunate thing here is the 1/1s clear off his Haunted Creeper. I feel like Chimmy could go for trade in all of his 1/1s and then Defender of Argus, his Imp Gang boss, to save it from that Explosive Trap. It would get a little damage on his Defender of Argus, but it would leave him with a 3/1 taunted Imp Gang boss. Let him push some more damage.
Is it really worth it in that case then?
I think it is, and it looks like he agrees. I mean, getting out...
It'd be awkward if it was second freeze.
Well, he knows it's not freezing because he already checked in with those imps.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So yeah, he's guaranteed for this to work out the way he wants it to.
Be awkward if it was misdirection.
Be awkward, yeah. And it'd also be awkward if there was a Knife Juggler Unleashed from Stef, but neither of those cards are there. So he's just going to have to throw some stuff down.
Stef is falling pretty far behind on board as well. It looks like his high main is going to come down on a board that he has lost all semblance of control over. And, Mal'Ganis is in the hand. No Void Caller to bring it out, though.
Yeah, but if he can live 3 more turns, it will go a long way towards locking up the game.
Yeah, for sure.
And he gets the knife. Oh, man. He's going to leave up to 3/1 taunt. Play a little around, maybe another Explosive Trap, maybe Unleash the Hounds. And
Angry Chicken.
He's in a decent spot in the race, and Stef doesn't have much going for him.
Nope. He plays high main this turn. He just doesn't do much. I mean, yeah, it's a strong body, but you're staring at 8 damage. You're at 19 health. Savannah High Main is going to help you fight back on board, but not this turn. It's going to have to be the next turn. And by that time, Chimmy might have just run away with the game already. So it looks like he is going to just play his 2 smaller creatures because it allows him to fight for the board a little bit better the next turn.
Ooh. But Sea Giant, that's pretty big. Chimmy can set up, probably just slam down Sea Giant. You can't really Void Terror, because that takes a minion off the board as well as putting one on. He could Flame Imp if he's feeling like his health really doesn't matter, which at this point it kind of doesn't. He's so far ahead in the race, maybe that's worth it. Sea Giant still costs the same to play. Just went with a little bit of trading.
And decides he can fit in a tap as well.
Oh, and he gets a Void Walker off of it.
Nice. All right. Well,
really well.
Looks like Stef is in lots of trouble because...
you really don't want to trade first. Oh. Well, a little bit of missequence there from Chimmy, and it's a pretty big deal. It's the difference between having 8 damage and winning next turn, or having 3 and not winning next turn, most likely. This actually, if a knife hits next turn, he's got 8 plus 5 from Doomguard, so he's got a chance to win next turn.
Yeah.
Now, Steph really needs to find a way to start pushing for some sort of chance.
Uh,
Maybe it's just Savannah High Main.
you saw him hold on to 3 cards or 2 cards at least for a long time, so you know that he's holding on to like Doomguard, Power Overwhelming,
Yeah.
things like that. So I feel like you are threatened way too much by that knife juggler. He might just have to quick shot it off.
Yeah, I feel like with the bow play, he might have to do that. He could push for 3 damage to face this turn, set Chimmy to 10, be threatening a bow and a quick shot and a hero power, but that's only 8, so he'd still need 2 more. So he's just going to play a board control game. Could still work out for him. We'll have to see, but like we kind of talked about, that Mal'Ganis that could come out as soon as the next turn could really close out the window.
Yeah.
Kill Command top deck for Stef is actually, it's just game with that angry chicken.
Wow. To think it came to that. I mean, imagine if that Flame Whip was a Sea Giant. This game would be over.
Yep.
And he'd be at 14 health.
Yeah. Very big swing. I mean, it's an 8 health swing. It's an 8/8. And there goes Mal'Ganis. So I think he definitely wanted to hold on to that since he didn't play anything before the Doomguard.
Yeah.
He is still going to push 8 this turn if he goes all face. And
Wow.
he would be alive to unleash the hounds. Yeah, he'd be.
If he
Unleash
trades,
wouldn't get him.
wow.
See, now he doesn't set up lethal for next turn, though.
And he's dead to Kill Command.
He's dead to Kill Command still. Yep. So we'll have to see what Steph draws. Just needs something that interacts with the board. That won't quite get him there. That's 1 off if it rolls Huffer.
But the thing is,
You might just go with the Savannah High Main.
it puts the most power on the board. Trade in.
Yeah,
He's going to
just
need 1 damage.
guarantee that you set up the lethal for next turn. Almost guaranteed anyway. Obviously never truly guaranteed, but here we go. And there it is.
And he finds it. Wow. So despite the couple little missteps there, Chimmy still manages to navigate his way to a victory. And Stef now up 2-0 in the series. Now it's tied 2-2. So he's sort of on the ropes here. Now has to find a victory against Warrior with Hunter, which could be a little difficult.
Yeah. Definitely a decent matchup, I would assume. He did save it for last, so maybe doesn't feel too confident. I'm not sure. Kind of depends on your mentality. Maybe just wanted to get the hard one out of the way, thinking if it's going to happen, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
But we'll just have to see. Again, haven't seen this Warrior at all, but neither has Steph. So definitely an information advantage over to Chimmy for this last game.
Yeah, and that could be a pretty big deal. We'll have to see. Again, like we said, most likely Patron Warrior, as that's the popular choice, but saw Step Brain Control Warrior, so could be that. Looks like it is Patron and Dread Corsair, which is a card that, I don't know, it's sort of been phased out, I feel.
I still see 1 copy of it in a lot of decks. It can really help in the mirror match to stop your opponent from spawning a bunch of patrons. It gives them something they have to get through first. It's decent against aggressive decks because it does serve as a taunt in the late game, and it's also just kind of an okay tempo card. But it's not really something that players have been using 2 of. I mean, when it was first getting tested out, it was a 2 of. A lot of players cut it, like you said, and then some went down to 1 of.
Yeah. You can end up being a lot of damage in the late game. Like if you have 2 Frothings on the board and a Deathbite equipped with Warsong Commander, it's a free extra 5 damage. Oh, 7?
If you have both Whirlwinds and the 3 damage from it, that's an extra 7. If you have 3 Whirlwinds, it's an extra 9.
Yep.
So can rack up damage pretty quickly for 0 mana. And it's
All
going to
right.
be an awkward hand from Stef with both unleashes. He would have loved to have seen these in some of the previous games, and now they come in a matchup where your opponent, if they have a bunch of minions, if you're reading this, it's too late. Uh, all those patrons, they will overrun you very quickly. Unleash can be nice if it's a really close game, but otherwise, not what you want to see. It's going to be a really big deal if this animal companion can get to survive. We'll have to see if Chimmy feels threatened enough to execute it, or if he'll just play down his acolyte, but he could get very punished by a Houndmaster.
Yeah. Again, we talked about the information advantage before. If he feels threatened enough to execute it, means he won't have to execute for a bigger threat later down the line, which could be a big deal because there are big things like we've talked about. Savannah High Main is definitely one of them. We could see that in the hand already from Stef. So
Yeah.
there are ways that you can deal with Savannah High Main other than execute, though. It's still not the highest amount of health. A second charge of Despite plus like patrons.
Yeah, and
direct
he's
to the-
actually... He does feel threatened by it, so he will execute it. This lines it up to die to that Mad Scientist, but it could deny the Houndmaster. He's going to hold on to the Houndmaster, though, with the Glaive Zuka top deck. So it works out a little better for him.
Yeah.
He can peel off all the armor this turn, as long as he trades into the Armor Smith first, which he will.
Just peel it all off.
Yep. Get rid of all the armor. Not as big of a deal against Patron usually, as most of them don't run Shield Slam. But armor is usually strictly better than health.
Yeah.
There is always the case of Draconid Crusher, where you want to be higher health, above 15. But haven't seen that one in competitive play yet, TJ.
Nope, but it'll have its time to shine.
You think so?
I have hope. No, it's
Wow.
yeah.
You tricking me here? You trolling me?
Yes, I am.
I thought maybe you had a sick new Draconid Crusher deck.
Yeah. Then I realized BGH still exists.
You can just play it as a 6/6,
You can,
and then it's a Dragon Ogre.
but then I might as well just play Gelbin Mechatork.
Yeah, but it's a dragon.
Yeah, but Gelbin spawns an invention.
Which can be negative. So Stef is in an okay spot. He didn't have the greatest turn this turn or the last one, but he is curving into a Savannah High Main. He's already seen one execute out of Chimmy, and he's going to have the Houndmaster to back it up. So maybe if he can put on enough pressure, could get there. He does have to weigh using this weapon or not. It's actually interesting. I didn't even realize last turn Chimmy had the option to coin out Harrison Jones. Just decided instead to get the other card draw. And he is going to use the weapon.
Cashing in.
Plays around Harrison, which could have came out last turn anyway. So I suppose he's playing around it off of the Nomish draw or off the top.
Harrison, a very common card in Patron nowadays because it helps so much against the
It's in
mirror.
everything, man. We've seen it in Hunter decks.
Yeah, we have.
It's almost in every
saw it
Druid
in
deck.
I saw it in a mage deck on the ladder earlier. A tempo mage.
Solid.
Yep. Ooze is in Warlocks now. Pretty much every Warlock, even Zoo Warlocks are running Ooze sometimes.
The weapons are taking over.
What has the world become when I can't just queue up ladder games and confidently play all of my weapons?
Yeah, exactly. I miss the days where I would sit on both my weapon charges.
Yep. Just equip a Despite just as a threat. Not to really use it to attack. Gone are those days.
So Chimmy decides to go with interesting play, draw some cards. Gets rid of all the board. Pops that trap out. And did he get the ghoul off? He did, okay. That would have been bad if he wasted the coin.
Yeah. Once
So-
again, Steph has an option to play Savannah High Main, but on a board
Yeah.
that really does not favor him. And I don't think he honestly has much of a choice. He can try and unleash here, but he's still going to give him cards, and I don't know. It's just he's in some trouble. He's in some trouble right now. He has put
Yeah.
on some pressure, but 19 is still. I mean, it's relatively healthy for Chimmy, especially since he sort of has the initiative on the board.
Yep. And he gets to pop the freezing with something he really doesn't care too much about. In fact, might even be able to recycle that later for another card. But I really like that Chimmy set up a pretty nice board, about the best he could. He used the coin, he used the inner rage. He went ahead and used all those tempo tools last turn, going into the Savannah High main turn to put himself in the best possible situation this turn. Still not the greatest spot for him. He can't really clear off the high main. He could Despite and put out like a free Dread Corsair, maybe go face or something. But then the taunts would get cleared off with like Bow and Unleash the Hounds.
Oh, he's going to go for it.
Yep.
He still doesn't have ways to close out the game. I mean, he has ways to apply pressure, and he has ways to stop the pressure, but he hasn't drawn into those damage tools, the Patrons, the Frothing Berserkers. I mean, I guess he's just chipping away, but... Oh,
Yeah.
Harrison will find value next turn.
Yeah, I'd
more
like
than
to see
likely.
Stef go for probably just Unleash Bow here. He could go for the quick shot to weave in a hero power, but you're saving more situational cards like Unleash, which I don't like as much. He could go for... He's a little bit off having Unleash Houndmaster being a good play. If there's one more minion out there for Chimmy, he could do that. Oh no, he actually can do that. So he can Unleash Houndmaster one of the dogs, trade 2 into the Dread Corsair, and then trade the 3/3/1 into the Ghoul. That would kill off both taunts, let him push through the high main damage. Just gonna hold on to the Unleashes, though, hoping they can get value sometime.
Yeah.
Gets to push 8, which is quite a bit.
That is a large amount, and Unleash, I mean, later on in the game, those can just be used as straight-up face damage. Like
Yeah.
you said, when the game is close, a lot of times Unleash is just used as like 4 or 5 damage to face, depending on how many creatures are on the board. So,
And Chimmy's at a point where he can't really just afford to play Emperor down. If he played Emperor, he would just die to the... I mean, there's, 11 showing? So, any 2 damage would kill him. Houndmaster would get him, Unleash would get him. He doesn't even need both. But double Unleash Hero Power would be the highest amount of damage for Stef. That would be 15, so a little bit of overkill. So he has to go for the Harrison.
Battle Rage, but if he does that, then...
You really want armor, yeah.
Yeah, he's not armoring up, but he's getting closer to the cards that he needs. I mean, he doesn't really have ways to fight back on board without just taking hits. He doesn't have Warsong Commander. He doesn't have Execute.
That high main going to get in a lot of work. Is he going to kill it off? Maybe he'll just go face.
The Fade Away Inner Rage.
Fade away. Did he get it off?
Hey! No, he didn't.
No.
Not quite.
So it's not quite there. That's only 12 from Stef. With double Unleash Hero Power. Just 4 off. He's going to have to go for more of a kind of conservative play.
Well, the Armorsmith is really posing a problem, so I wouldn't be surprised if
Can't
he
get rid of it.
Well, you can Unleash Houndmaster.
Oh, that's true. Could do that.
He doesn't weave in a hero power there, but he does get to smack face with the high main, which is very beneficial, to say the least.
Yeah. So, like you said, gonna remove off that Armorsmith.
And
Considering whether he should play that web spinner, I feel like you might as well.
you already have a 1/1 up there.
You
so,
want him to have as many patrons as possible, because then you kill him more with the Unleash.
Yep. And who knows, maybe that web spinner will pull out something big. Maybe it'll get a Tundra Rhino.
I wonder what the trade was all about. So he's really afraid of patrons. Like he's playing around it to every possible way. Took off his own 1/1 for no reason other than to play around patrons. Didn't develop the web spinner. So he's foregoing a little more pressure. Deciding what he has on the board is enough. And until Chimmy draws into something else, it is enough.
There's
Warsong, not in time. He can Warsong out the Acolyte and interrage it and trade it in, but that gives up your Warsong. You're taking another 8 from the hero power in the Savannah Highmane, and it's at the point where you gotta start going quick. Gotta finish this game soon. I feel like Despite hero power might be the best. You Despite face, you set up the lethal for next turn. That's what I would have really liked to see. Not going to go for it. Instead, going to go for the Interage Whirlwind defensive play. Trade into the Houndmaster, I think. So he will live, but it's a survival play, not really a play.
Nope.
Oh, that's it.
Win. All right. Well, Stef finally manages to pick up the kill command, what he wanted so badly in the last game, and Stef is going to take the series 3-2. That was almost for not having like many control decks in that game. One control deck. That series lasted over an hour.
Man.
Wow, these players.
A long day, maybe, TJ.
It's a potential. With these players are roping. They're really thinking through their turns. But Stef is going to take the series 3-2. He's going to move on to the finals. And Chimmy, good run for him, but he'll move down to the third place match. He'll still have a chance to compete for some GEICO points. He'll still have a chance to compete for some money, but he will not have a chance to get that auto qualification to the future tournament this weekend. But I feel like he played overall. He had that one little misstep with the Sea Giant, but he still won that game. And other than that, he played pretty well.
Yep. A little unfortunate for him. Got too far behind early in the series and wasn't quite able to pull off the reverse sweep.
Yep. All right. Well, we are going to continue the EU qualifier number 8, but we are going to go to a quick 2-minute commercial break before we do that. Don't go anywhere, guys. More One Nation of Gamers Summer Circuit action continues right after this.